Hi there and welcome to Blaze Faith Apparel. Today we're going to be showing you how to make one of these cushions. This one has an awesome closing with the enclosed zipper all the way along, and I show you the method to make that really neat, and it's perfect for beginners as well because I know zippers can be a bit of a scary feat if you've never done it before. And I've got tassels on this one here. This is actually just an extra step that before you stitch all of these bits together, you just pin these into the corners and do every step that I'm doing just with adding these in. If you would like a separate tutorial on how to do that, just let me know down below and I'll record one of those for you. And this one, we have this beautiful velvet fabric which I've got from the market here at Hitchin. And it just looks really nice with the two contrasting, so that's something for you to consider when you're looking at fabrics. I'll put it down in the description below of where I got it. The lady who sells me this, she's also online as well, so you can get the same one if you like. So for all of these patterns, if you would like to just use your own measurements, remember it's the size of your pillow. Remember to add the seam allowance in as well, so it depends how much seam allowance you would like. If you're a beginner, maybe 1.5 centimetres gives you a little bit more room. And just remember, when you're doing the bottom section here, you need some extra. So I would say a 2 centimetre seam allowance for the bottom and a 1.5 seam allowance or 1 centimetre seam allowance for the rest, depending on how confident you are. It's a lot easier if you download the PDF pattern because it's all there for you and you can pick which layer you want, so you don't have to print out all the sizes, but it's completely up to you. So if you would like to do this yourself, then it's the size of your pillow. So this is an 18-inch pillow, so it would be 18 inches plus, if it's depending on your seam allowance, each side, and then 2 centimetres seam allowance for the zipper section here. This comes as a PDF pattern, so if you look down below, I think I do it in sizes from 12 inches all the way up to 20 inches. And yeah, so it's all printable online, so if you follow the link down below you'll be able to find that. And now let's get straight to it and make one of these pillows. For the first part of the cushion, we are going to be stitching these two bottom seams here. We're going to head over to the overlocker and overlock both of these, or zigzag stitch if you don't have an overlocker. These are the sections where the zipper will be, so this is where we overlock them. Now we are going to overlock the bottom edge. This is where the zipper will be. If you don't have an overlocker, don't worry, you can use a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. Trim it down, and normally if you just pull on the threads it locks it for you, just like that, and snip away the excess, and do the same process for the other cushion piece. Up those two overlocked edges like so, make sure everything matches up. And we're going to take our zipper and place it here, and what we are going to do is each side here we are going to mark where the zipper opening is going to start and finish, which here I'm going to do it about 1.5 inch away on each side. So if you mark that in 1.5 inch, so here if you mark 1.5 in, and the reason that we've done this is because we are going to stitch this together, but at these points here, so we're going to back stitch a few at the beginning here, and then when we reach this point here we're going to back stitch and go on, and then continue on, back stitch when we reach here and back stitch when we reach here. These sections here are going to have to stay secured, and this section here, this stitch, we are actually going to use the seam unripper and open it up, and then we're going to be able to see the zipper, and we're going to have a nice flap that will open and look very neat at the bottom. So pin these in place, head over to your machine, stitch here to here, back stitch, back stitch, and back stitch. Here we are going to use a 2 centimetre seam allowance for this section here. This is because we need overlap to close off the zipper section. So remember to back stitch at the beginning forward, and when we get to that marking we are going to back stitch a few times again, which for me is right here. Back stitch, forward stitch, and then continue all the way to the next section. And back stitch. Okay, and now we are going to go over to the iron and press these two sections open. Remember to trim away any of your excess thread. So now you've pressed your two cushion panels open like this, we are going to take our zipper. This is a 18-inch zipper, which is actually a little bit big, which is fine because we just adjust it as we stitch. So this point here where we want it to be visible on the outside when we open the flap is going to that section that we've marked, so 1.5 inches in will go here, and the zipper section you want to make sure is lined up with the middle seam here, center seam, and we're just going to pin that in place. If you prefer, you can pin all the way along, but I find it a lot easier for me to be able to look and guide as I go along. We're going to open this a little bit here because the whole point is that we are going to stitch along here on each side, and we've got to remember to keep this slightly open up here so that when we unrip the seam we actually have enough give to pull the zipper through to the other side. So we are going to go over to the machine and we are going to stitch from that marking there all the way up to that marking there, so 1.5 inches from that side. We're going to match up these sides, square off the edge, and do the same all the way back down this side and finish off here. Now we are going to stitch the zipper in place. We are going to start here, so this is the marking of the line we made underneath, so remember it's 1.5 inches from the edge, and we are going to start here. I am going to use my foot to go along the ridge of the zipper, and I am actually just going to move my needle as much as I need it to, so I am going to move it in to 2. And so that's going to catch along this edge here, and that footer is going to keep that side in the right place for me. I am also going to keep looking like this so I can make sure this is lined up with the centre seam. And remember to backstitch at the beginning. We are going to square this off, but we're going to do it on the other side. So here we go, and we're going to backstitch a few. Be very neat with these stitches because these stitches will be seen on the other side. I like to, for the first section, pull the zipper up because it doesn't matter. It's just easier to use it as a guide. You can always use more pins if you like, but because I'm using a velvet fabric, the least amount of pins you use the better, because if you have a slightly dodgy pin it will just completely ruin your fabric. Okay, and this is where you have to look out for your marking, which for me is here. And just pull that down a little bit so it's not in the way. I like to now pull it past like that. Make sure you lift up your footer, and now I am measuring this seam up with the centre seam again. Up to this point here. I always triple check. and we lift up, and what we're going to do now is line up this piece here, and this is just going to close off that zipper. So you're going, if you're like me, you're having to edit the zipper, make sure you're very careful when you're going over those plastic ridges. Back stitch a few. And here, make sure you line up your footer precisely. I'm going to unzip, make sure you unzip a little bit early on before you get yourself stuck and you can't find the edge. I'm going to go forward one more and just check your positioning. So if you hold these two together like so, and using the same process as the other side, use the foot to push the zipper to the side. The tricky bit here is when we reach the zipper handle tag, we have to move it out of the way a little bit. Okay, so this section you have to be careful because we have to avoid the zipper, so you go very slowly. And now match this up to the other side. I like to do a few back stitches. And now we are closing off this square. And there we have it. We are going to go over and get our unpicker and rip this seam here. So this is what your zipper looks like from the inside, and you can see there how the handle is halfway down. This is so when we rip open the seams we have that space to pull the tag, and this is what we look like the right way around. We are going to take our seam ripper and, starting off at one edge, we are going to, I start by just unpicking one, so we've got that little gap just like that, and you see as you do that it starts to unpick. And with the seam ripper, being careful, just pull along that seam and it will pull out all of those threads. And if you just pull out any of those excess threads, you can now see that we have a nice zipper with a flap to hide it away. Now we've done our zipper section, we are going to make sure it's slightly open so that we can turn it the right way around and put them right sides together. Pull this section here flat and match, and we're going to pin them all in place all the way around. Brilliant. Now using a 1.5 seam allowance, we are going to stitch all the way around here. Now make sure that you pull this section here flat and move the zipper end out of the way if it intrudes into this section. So we are using 1.5 centimetre seam allowance here. Make sure your needle is central. Back stitch. And now we are going to head straight over to the overlocker machine. Now we are going to overlock all of the raw edges. Remember, if you don't have an overlocker, you can just use a zigzag stitch for this. There we go, and trim away the thread. Now this is our finished cushion from the inside. We are just going to grab the zipper and unzip the rest of it. This is why you need that gap. And turn it the right way around. This is the one with the bubbles on the end. Or tags, what are we calling them? Tags? Which are actually quite handy for pulling out the corners also. And all we need to do now before we put it in the cushion, put the cushion case, the cushion inside, is press these edges and make it nice and neat. Remember, if you're using a velvet like ours, like this one here, that you don't use the steam, and it's a good idea to put a cotton layer over the top to protect the fabric. There we go, and well done. Now you have your finished pillow. I hope you enjoyed this sewing tutorial and you learnt something. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and remember to subscribe down below for future videos. I'm trying to release them as often as I can, and let me know if there's anything that you'd like me to record. And thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.